Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Isaac, welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here now. I'm looking forward to diving into your music over the next bit. So first off, you guys recently finished the Snafu tour with Saliva, Drowning Pool, and Above Snakes. What was it like?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It was awesome, to be able to play with those guys. All of them were super nice. We made a lot of good friends, especially with the Above Snakes. And yeah, they were all cool people. And funny little side note, at the very end of the tour, um, at least our last show with Saliva, some of the guitarists from Saliva put open cans of soup by the amps when we were playing, knowing that we would knock them over, and we did. We spilled soup all over the stage and some of the amps. It was pretty funny. They got us
Lovely.
though.
Are you planning to get him back if you ever go on the road with him again?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, we gotta think of something.
Yeah, definitely. Besides the cans of soup, what were some personal high points on the tour for you?
High points. Well, actually, we had a show in Colorado Springs, and I had my brother come out because he's active military and he's at Fort Carson, and it's pretty big military town. So he came up on stage and kind of said a little something, and we it was really nice. It was a pretty high point. Felt really good. Uh, definitely that was probably one
Mhm.
of them. There are a
You
few
can't beat
places though
that.
that, yeah.
And you guys recently released your debut album, Blink. Take us deeper into it.
So the album itself, I would say, is kind of about the human condition. It's kind of a broad term, but just to encapsulate it all, as it goes with many different kind of meanings and themes throughout. But main ones being like, perseverance and that sort of thing. You know.
Right. How do you approach songwriting? For the album, what did it look like, that whole process?
You know, it'll depend on certain things. Sometimes it'll start with lyrics, sometimes it'll start with a riff. Um, Sometimes I will be doing something, random in my daily life, and I'll be like thinking of some interesting lyrics. I'll jot them down, and then later on I'll come back to them and add them to a little part that I really like and kind of matches in terms of vibes. But yeah, and it definitely takes songs can be quick, sometimes songs can take years. I mean, for example, Reach, um, the first song on the album started way back in when I was in high school, and when I was originally with Cole, the lead guitarist, and we were first writing, that's where it started, and now it's somewhere entirely different, entirely different song. So, yeah.
Right. Gonna throw one at you now. I love asking, and I always get the same answer, so I'm intrigued to see what answer you give. How do you know when a song is finished?
Ooh, that is actually a good question because, sometimes I can't always feel like a song is finished. I feel like there's always something that I could change or a part that I could add, but I'd say whenever you kind of sit down and listen to it and you can hear that, like, okay, this song, it does not need any more, added to it, like without it being too much. I don't know how to explain it, but
I
yeah.
gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Is there a track on the album then that you would look at and say is the perfect one, even if you wanted to, you couldn't add anything to it?
Hmm. You know, hmm, it's hard to say. I'll start with this. My personal favorite on the album is Undertow. Uh, but I would say that, like, I guess the most perfect track, I would think it would be uh All I Know. It kind of came up together really nicely, and it just everything works in it so well. And yeah, yeah.
Right, right. I like it. I like it. When it came to recording then, was there any challenges or memorable moments you can think of?
Yeah, actually, for a couple of the songs, whenever we first were recording it, in terms of lyrics, I mean, there were a few where I was just being like, you know what, I really need to feel these lyrics. I don't want to just, you know, throw it out there. And so I really just sat and thought about it a couple times. When performing and singing the lyrics, I would change a lot as we were doing them, which came a challenge because, in terms of memory, may go back to the old one, and so there's another take and another take. So, but it ended up working out.
Yeah, yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear it. What was the original vision for the album, and how close do you think the finished version is?
I think it came out pretty much how I envisioned it. Like I said, it was just centered around the human condition, just everything that people go through, that we go through, um, and sonically, it did come out a little like uh more produced than I thought it would, but it still like it sounds great, and so I love it, and I'm really proud of it, and yeah.
Right, right.
And
What you saying? Oh, go on.
no, I was just gonna say, and Bobby Amaru from Saliva, he's the one who produced the record. He's just such a talented musician and producer, and he helps make that album sound so good.
I was just going to say there, what you're saying it was more kind of produced than you expected. Were you hoping or wanting a more raw sound, maybe?
You know, um, not necessarily. I just whenever I like first envisioned it, I guess, like with my demos, that's like my expectation. Like I'm thinking of my terrible demos that like sound
Right.
awful. And so then here comes Bobby with this amazing production. I'm like, oh wow. You know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Right, right. I'm sure at some stage you were kind of like, is that really us? Do we sound like that?
Yeah.
Oh man. And it's been out for what, just over a month now. How
Yeah.
has the fan reaction been?
Pretty good. We've got a lot of love, a lot of good feedback. It's been really good. I will say, with Don't Fear the Reaper though, you know what the number one comment I get is? You know what it is.
Go on.
You need more cowbell. I mean, it is the number one comment I get.
Yeah, I was going
But
to be nice. I wasn't going to go there, but
it's okay.
I was going to bring it up later, but you shot the video for it in New Orleans. What was it like?
Oh yeah, that was really fun. Thomas Crane was the video guy I did it with, and we just kind of basically took a day and walked around New Orleans for like a whole day. It was like kind of gloomy, and it was like really a good, like perfect vibe for the song, except for that there were a lot of people, because it was right around Mardi Gras in New Orleans, so or right before, and so there were a lot of people, but it was still really good. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of fun.
Speaking of music videos, one of your other music videos you shot in a haunted house attraction. Tell us about
I
that.
did. Yeah, that was a lot of fun too, arguably more fun because uh whenever we would flip the power on, like all the animatronic machines and all that stuff turns on. So when you're walking around in there, you trip a little motion detector and you get screamed at and jumped at by this like clown or like something. Personally, I'm not a fan of clowns, so it was interesting, but it was a lot of fun to do that, especially in the bus, like the last scene, just like when we kind of go crazy. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. I'm liking where you're going with your music videos. Can you let us in on any plans you have for future ones?
Ooh, you know, we have a few different ideas, but um, a dream of mine would be to do like some sort of desert music video or something, like is it You Ought to Know? Alanis Morissette and like Burden in My Hand by Soundgarden. Like those are some music videos where I'm like, okay, those are like really cool. And yeah, um, but also some other ones too.
Right, right. I like it. I like it. Now, it's called Concerts That Made Us, so I have to ask you some concert related questions if you don't mind. First off,
Absolutely.
what concerts, as a concert goer, what concerts have made you?
Well, I'd say there's two that come to mind as like, that really inspired me. I was like, wow. One of them was actually I got to see Guns N' Roses. Believe it or not. But it was right around uh like 2018 maybe, and it was a really good show seeing them play, and Slash was great, and they covered Black Hole Sun. It was right around when Chris died, so it was just really cool to see, you know.
Yeah,
And then another one, um, I saw Stone Temple Pilots, Bush, and The Cult,
holy crap.
Cynthia Woods, and that was just a fantastic show. Um, but yeah, The Cult is actually a one of my favorite bands, believe it or not, along with Stone Temple Pilots, of course, and I
Hmm.
also love Bush. So it was a really great show, and they did not miss a note or anything. It's really good.
Yeah, yeah. I can't move on without mentioning Guns N' Roses. Anytime someone brings up Guns N' Roses these days, I feel like everyone asks, what was Axl's vocals like on the night? So go on, tell us.
He actually did really well that night. I mean, he was on point, and I was like honestly pretty shocked myself. You know, it's like wow. I mean, sounds pretty good. Um, there was one incident, not with Axel, I guess, but he had Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top come on stage. Actually, we're in Texas. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna get this some small local talent to come on stage," and then here comes Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, and at first it ended up like sounding good, but at first, you know, as a musician, I could tell that I think that Billy was in standard tuning and the other guys were in E flat because that's what Guns N'
Right.
Roses uses. And so, but they got it good. But but yeah.
Man, sounds like a hell of a show. And you guys are from both Baton Rouge and Houston. How did
Yeah.
that kind of influence your sound?
You know, Baton Rouge has a lot of cool bands. It's very diverse. I would argue it's more diverse than Houston, but to be fair, Houston is just such a big city. And so whenever you have those smaller cities, the scenes are a lot more tighter knit and like people know each other, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, sorry. There's a pretty big like I don't know what to call it, hardcore scene in Baton Rouge, and uh that definitely influenced us a little bit, you know, just in terms of some of that attitude. But but yeah, there's a lot of cool people over there, and it's kind of merging, kind of having I guess our foot in both doors in terms of the scenes has been really good. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've never been to either of them, but as an Irish person over here, I have this image of both of them. Say Houston being kind of a very hard rock metal, and Baton Rouge being kind of country rock slash kind of dirt metal. Would I be right?
You know, that is somewhat right for sure. But Houston has a lot of country artists as well. You know, country's really big right now. Um, so you see a lot of that. Definitely like Baton Rouge has that swamp country, swamp rock, all those bands. Absolutely, they're everywhere over there. And Houston, I actually see a lot of punk bands in Houston.
Right.
Like there's a band called 307 Departure here in Houston. They kind of give me like a little bit of Green Day, but not. I don't know how to explain it. They're really cool. And there's a few cool bands over here. Noise Gate. They give me like a 90s vibe too. But yeah.
Right, right. I'll have to look deeper into the scenes in both areas, so it sounds good. Now, for any listeners that haven't caught one of your shows, what are they like? Give us the full experience if you can.
Well, it normally starts out we always like to start out with Reach.
Okay.
Spoiler, but high energy. We just come in. It's a lot of head banging. um Especially on that song, and uh a lot of energy, but we also take it back a little bit, and we let the music kind of speak for itself too, and you know where you can really sit there and kind of listen and experience the vibe of the song and maybe the meaning, you know, what your meaning may be for the song. So yeah.
Sounds pretty cool. Sounds like a good night. Now, out of all the gigs that you guys have played, is there one you can think of that stands above the rest as maybe the highlight or the best you've played?
You know, it's probably gonna be between two, and I already mentioned Colorado Springs, that's one, and the other, which I think we is probably the best show we've played just because the crowd was like there, it was packed, and we played phenomenally. There was no like it was all perfect, and it was at Great Falls, Montana.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, right. Sounds Great Falls, is that the place that it's kind of like a natural amphitheater out of stones? Or am I wrong?
No, no, actually, no. You remind me of there's a Greek amphitheater at LSU in Baton Rouge,
Oh.
but we haven't played there yet. But no, it was this trying to remember what the place was called. It was a really cool place though, and uh they let the bands have some catering, so
Always a
props.
good thing. And
So,
to flip that around then, if you think of all the shows, is there one that is maybe the worst? Everything went wrong, and how did you overcome it?
ooh, I wouldn't say like it went like terrible, and I'm sure there's a few that like sometimes you run into issues, but one that was on the tour was we went to Deadwood, South Dakota at this casino, and it was a really big place. It was a really great place, and you know it was so big, I think that we were kind of thrown off at how big it was. We're not used to playing in such like so and we were the first, opener band, and it went good, but right as we go into Eye for an Eye, Jake, our drummer, snaps his kick drum pedal. Like the
Uh,
metal part snaps. I don't know how he did it, but he snaps the pedal. And so we're just like we have to roll into it, just start joking around with the audience like, yeah, anybody brought a kick pedal from home? Anybody got a kick pedal? And we worked through it, and it still ended up being a good show. But there was that, and yeah, it was just such a like a big place. It almost was like, wow, you know,
mm, man.
different vibes for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of engaging with the audience, how do you engage with your audience during a show? How do you get them hyped up and into it?
Well, sometimes I like to like walk up and kind of give people like handshakes, be like, "Hey man, how you doing?" Like, how you doing? I just like going up there and saying what's up to the audience, and then I like to get people going. I'm like, "We got any like headbangers in the house tonight? Any 90s fans maybe?" Like sometimes we do a cover of like Alice in Chains, and so that gets people going. Um, Also, of course, with Don't Fear the Reaper, we'll be like, y'all may know the song, it's called Don't Fear the Reaper. Sure. And then people get hype. Um, but yeah, uh, and just giving that energy gets people going too, getting really into the songs. Uh, Sometimes I'll be super front man and really be engaging, but sometimes it's just feeling the music and letting people see that you know
Very true. Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to showtime, how do you psych yourselves up? Then afterwards, how do you wind down?
how do we psych ourselves up? Well, I've seen some of the guys before the show, what they'll do, they'll kind of be jumping around and doing some stretches and stuff. Me, I'm just kind of chilling. um but we all kind of normally just talk for a second, like, hey, let's bring our best and have a great show. Um, Occasionally maybe a shot or a beer,
Has to be done.
but 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 yeah, normally we're just hyped up for the show. We're like, all right, let's do this.
Mm, yeah, yeah.
And for winding down, for at least the tour, we really half most of the time we did not have a merch person, so we were kind of our own merch people. So it was straight to the stand. So it was just interacting with fans and that sort of thing.
Right, right. I like it. I like it. Now, future, before we dive into the last couple of questions, future plans set in stone. What can you let us in on?
Well, we've got some shows with Tommy Vext, the ex Bad Wolf singer, here in July in Texas. That's something that's happening. Set in stone, that's probably the most set in stone thing right now. And then we're in talks, of course, trying to where we're writing some new music. And of course, we're still focused on the album and we're supporting that 100%, but we are talking about writing some new stuff, maybe doing an EP uh in the future, and hopefully going on back on tour with Saliva in the future, maybe in the spring. But yeah.
Nice, nice. I suppose you do have to get them back for that canned soup.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do. Yeah.
Right, the last couple of questions. First off, when you guys think of yourselves in say 5 years' time, what will the band look like? Where would you like to be?
You know, I definitely want to by that time have released maybe couple other albums or EPs. And I really see the band exploring some different sounds for sure. And I'm excited to see where that will go. And hopefully, we'll be playing and headlining uh our own tour here by then, and in some big festivals hopefully. And yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Can't wait to see it happen. The the next one. It's a bit of an odd one. What are you currently obsessed with? It can be anything at all.
What am I currently obsessed with? Hmm. You know, I have been, I guess I wouldn't say obsessed, but I've been watching a lot of the new Fallout show.
Okay.
Um and also I've really been getting into Days of the New some more. It's a band. Um got a really acoustic feel, so I've been also kind of writing some more acoustic songs and getting really into that. Oh, and actually I'd say what I've been diving into really deep recently is lyrics from like Big Thief and Mazzy Star. I've been really getting into their lyrics and being like, wow, it's great writing, and kind of looking at that and really admiring
Right, right. The next one is even stranger. If you had to
that.
spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Ooh. Well, I don't know any of them personally, so I'm worried that maybe they would be a little bit irritable. But thinking about it, um, maybe let me look on my wall real quick, look at my albums and think about this for a second. Um, it would be cool to sit in a room and talk about music with like Cornell, of course. Um, Probably like Robert Plant,
Hmm,
he's still alive, so
yeah.
he'd probably get tired of me though.
That's
So
two
what were you
real.
thinking of when you were like doing that, ramble on? So what were you thinking? Shut up.
I was actually thinking those are two very good choices because I was looking at your albums there and I was like, Axl Rose could be a bit crazy. Kurt
Yeah,
Cobain, I think 24 hours would be too much, but Cornell and
yeah,
Plant are like safe choices. They seem like really cool guys.
yeah, definitely. I was thinking the same thing.
And the final one, so what is your go-to album? What's an album you constantly revisit?
Oh. Um, Probably gonna be it's between a few, I revisit a few, but it's Super Unknown, Meteora, uh, or sorry, Linkin Park, and yeah, those are two that I revisit a lot for sure.
Great
Yeah.
choices. I like them. I like them. Listen, Isaac, it's been an absolute blast now. Thanks a million.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome to the podcast, conscience that made us. Interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concerts that made us.com.